The first frost of the season had come overnight, painting the windows of my small suburban home with intricate crystalline patterns. I woke to the kind of cold that seeps into your bones, despite the heater running full blast. The sun barely cut through the gray morning, casting a pale light across the room. It started with the window by my bed. The frost patterns, beautiful and delicate, seemed to shift when I wasn't looking. At first, I thought it was my imagination. But when I looked closer, the patterns weren't flowers or snowflakes. They were sharper, claw-like, jagged as if scratched by something trying to get in. I stepped back, unease prickling my skin. The heater groaned in the corner, pushing out warm air that didn't seem to reach the windows. As I moved through the house, every pane of glass bore the same strange marks. The frost thickened as the day wore on, spreading across the glass like ivy creeping up a wall. By mid-afternoon, the light outside had dimmed unnaturally. The frost wasn't just on the windows anymore. It had crept down the walls, forming thin, icy veins that pulsed faintly, almost like they were alive. The air grew colder, and every breath came out in a visible puff. I tried scraping the frost off, but it wouldn't budge. The surface beneath felt warm, almost too warm, like the glass was fighting back. As I pressed my hand against the pane, I thought I felt movement beneath it. A subtle shift, as if something on the other side was pressing back. Night fell quickly, swallowing the house in darkness. The frost began to glow faintly, an eerie blue light that pulsed in time with the icy veins on the walls. The house creaked, the sound echoing in the silence. I felt like I wasn't alone. I locked every door, checked every window, but the unease only grew. In the living room, the largest window faced the street, offering a view of the snowy front yard. The frost had nearly consumed the entire pane, but there was something behind it now. A shadow, vague and indistinct, moved just beyond the glass. I froze, staring as the shadow grew clearer. It wasn't human. Its limbs were too long, its form hunched and twisted. The claw-like frost patterns seemed to extend from it, radiating outward as if it was the source. It pressed against the glass, and the window groaned under the strain. I backed away, heart pounding. The air in the room was freezing now, my breath visible in the dim light. The creature's shadow shifted, and suddenly there was a sharp crack. A thin fracture spiderwebbed across the glass, a high-pitched whine that made me cover my ears. The frost began to spread faster, not just on the windows but across the floor and walls. It consumed everything in its path, leaving a trail of ice that glimmered in the faint light. The temperature plummeted, and I could feel the frost nipping at my skin. In the kitchen, I grabbed a heavy cast-iron pan, desperate for some kind of defense. When I returned to the living room, the creature was gone. The frost on the window stilled, the shadow no longer visible. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then the glass shattered. A wave of icy wind surged into the room, carrying with it the smell of decay. The frost exploded outward, the veins spreading across the ceiling and floor, faster than I could comprehend. In the center of the room where the frost converged, the creature began to take form. Its body was made of frost and shadow, shifting and writhing as it solidified. The air around it crackled, the cold so intense it burned. I swung the pan, but it passed through the creature harmlessly, the metal instantly coated in a layer of frost. The creature moved, its claw-like limbs scraping against the floor. It didn't walk. It flowed, like a living storm. I stumbled back, desperate to find some way out. The door was frozen shut, the frost sealing it in place. The walls groaned, the house itself seemed to twist under the creature's influence. I ran to the bedroom, slamming the door behind me. The frost followed, seeping through the cracks, the icy veins pulsing as they spread. The window in the room was completely opaque now, the frost glowing brighter. The shadow returned, pressing against the glass from the outside, larger and more menacing than before. I grabbed a blanket and wrapped it around myself, trying to stave off the biting cold. My mind raced, searching for a solution. The heater still groaned in the corner, its efforts futile against the supernatural chill. Then an idea struck me. I grabbed a can of lighter fluid from the closet, my fingers numb and stiff. Dousing the blanket, I lit it with a trembling hand. The flames roared to life, and I threw the burning fabric at the frost-covered wall. The fire caught, the heat pushing back the frost, causing it to hiss and retreat. The creature screamed, a sound that was more felt than heard, vibrating through my chest. The frost recoiled, the veins snapping like brittle glass. I didn't wait to see if it would recover. I grabbed the lighter fluid and ran back to the living room, setting fire to the remaining frost. The creature writhed, its form unraveling as the flames consumed its icy tendrils. The temperature in the room began to rise, the frost melting into puddles of freezing water. The shadow faded, its outline breaking apart until it was nothing but a wisp of mist. The house creaked one last time, the frost disappearing completely. The windows were clear, the air warm once more. I stood in the center of the living room, drenched in sweat and shivering, the lighter fluid can empty in my hand. Outside, the first rays of dawn broke through the trees, illuminating the untouched snow. The world was quiet, the storm gone as if it had never been. I stepped outside, the fresh air filling my lungs. The frost flowers were gone, leaving only faint melting patterns on the windows. As I walked away from the house, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. But when I turned back, the house stood silent and still, its dark silhouette blending into the morning light. Whatever had come with the frost, it was gone. For now.